In Section 1, you will learn about statistics, risk factors, protective factors, differences between risk factors and warning signs.
I have my ups and downs, just like anybody else.
Maybe more than anybody else.
I can be hard to figure out.
And I like my privacy.
I don't want you looking over my shoulder all the time.
But you know your kid better than anybody else. And if you think he's acting different than usual...
Acting really down, crying all the time for no good reason.
Or getting really mad.
Not able to sleep, or sleeping too much.
Shutting her friends out or giving her stuff away.
Acting reckless, drinking, using drugs, staying out late.
Suddenly not doing stuff he used to love.
Or doing stuff that's just not like him.
It might be nothing to worry about. It might just be high school.
Or it might be something more. He might be depressed.
Not just feeling down, really depressed.
It might be that your kid is thinking about killing himself.
It happens. More than you think. More than it should.
And people say, I had no idea.
I thought it was just a phase he was going through.
I never thought she'd do it.
I wish he'd come to me.
I wish he'd said something.
I wish I'd said something.
When it's too late. So if you think your kid's acting different, if she seems like a different person, say something.
Say, what's wrong? How can I help?
And ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
It doesn't hurt to ask. In fact, it helps.
When people are thinking about killing themselves, they want somebody to ask.
They want somebody to care.
Maybe you're afraid you'll make it worse if you ask. Like, you'll put the idea in their head.
Believe me, it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
In fact, the best way to keep a teenager from killing herself is to ask, are you thinking about killing yourself?
And what if they say yes?
Or maybe.
Or sometimes,
Well, here's what you don't say.
That's crazy.
Don't be such a drama queen.
you're making too much of this.
That boy's not worth killing
Yourself.
over.
That's not going to solve anything.
You're just trying to get attention.
You're not going to kill yourself.
What you do say is,
I'm sorry you're feeling so bad.
How can I help?
We'll get through this together.
Let's keep you safe.
A lot of people think about killing themselves. Adults and kids.
most of them never try it, but some of them do. So if your kid says,
I'd be better off dead.
I can't live with
I'm
this.
gonna kill myself,
Take her seriously. Find someone she can talk to about it. Someone who knows how to help.
Sometimes kids want to kill themselves because something happened. A breakup, a failure.
But sometimes it goes deeper, and it's not going to go away by itself.
Get some help. Talk to your doctor.
Or a counselor at school.
Or your minister.
but don't just let it drop.
And make sure that your kid always has someone to turn to. Someone he trusts.
Make a list together right then. 3, 4, 5 names.
Put a suicide hotline number on there too.
Have him keep that list in his wallet, so he always knows where to turn.
Make sure your home is safe.
If you have pills she could use to hurt herself, lock them up.
If you have a gun, don't just lock it up. Get it out of the house. The bullets, too.
And one more thing. If you think your kid might be about to hurt himself, don't leave him alone.
Take him to the emergency room.
Call 911 if you have to.
We all have our ups and downs, but sometimes it's more than that.
If you think something's wrong, the only way to find out is to ask.
Ask straight out. Are you thinking about killing yourself?
Don't wait until you're sure. Trust your gut.
Because it never hurts to ask.
And it can make a big difference.
All the difference.
In your kid's life.
Schools are a key setting for suicide prevention. Teachers, mental health providers, and other school personnel who interact with students can play an important role in keeping them safe. Teachers play an important role in school connectedness. Connectedness is an important factor for improving academic achievement and reductions in suicidal thoughts and attempts. A student's mental health can affect their academic performance. Maintaining a safe environment is part of a school's overall mission. A student's suicide can significantly impact other students and the entire school community. 95% of American youth are enrolled in schools. They provide an optimal environment for identifying and reaching out to youth at risk for suicide. Suicide is the third leading cause of death among children and adolescents in the United States, including ages 10 to 19 years of age. Around 41,000 Americans die by suicide each year. 113 suicides per day, one person every 13 minutes. For every suicide, there are 25 other suicide attempts. Firearms account for almost 50% of all suicides. More than 90% of those who die by suicide have a diagnosable mental disorder. Girls are more likely to attempt suicide, but male youth die by suicide 5 times more frequently than females. 1 in 5 U.S. high school students have suicidal thoughts each year, and 1 in 10 attempt suicide. Although the incidence of suicide is low prior to adolescence, suicide still ranks as the 11th leading cause of death in children aged 5 to 11 years old, with devastating consequences for families. 1/2 of all lifetime cases of mental illness begins by age 14. Fewer than 1/3 of adults and half of children with a diagnosable mental disorder receive mental health services in a given year. Over 50% of students with a mental disorder at age 14 and older drop out of high school, the highest dropout rate of any disability group. 1 in 4 adults, around 57.7 million Americans, experiences a mental health disorder in any given year, and 1 in 10 children live with a serious mental or emotional disorder. An ACE score is a tally of stressful or traumatic events, including abuse and neglect. They may also include household dysfunction such as witnessing domestic violence or growing up with a family member who has substance abuse disorders. ACEs are strongly related to the development and prevalence of a wide range of health problems throughout a person's lifespan, including those associated with substance misuse. ACEs include physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical neglect, emotional neglect, intimate partner violence, mother treated violently, substance misuse within the household, household mental illness, parental separation or divorce, or incarcerated household member. People who struggle with suicidal thoughts and behaviors frequently live with a desperation and an inability to see life ever getting better. They often report that they can't stop the pain, can't think clearly, can't make decisions, can't see any way out, can't sleep, eat, or work, can't get out of the depression, can't make the sadness go away, can't see the possibility of change, can't see themselves as worthwhile, can't get someone's attention, can't seem to get control. What do children understand about suicide? There are 3 concepts children should understand about death. It's irreversible, it's final, it's not a trip from which they can return. It brings about non-functionality, the body function stops, and the person is not asleep. It's inevitable, everyone will die sometime. Most children will understand these concepts by age of 9. If there was a death in the family, children may understand these concepts earlier. Usually by the 5th grade, more than 90% understand suicide. General risk factors include a family history of suicide or attempts or psychopathology. There is a 4-fold increase in children when a parent dies by suicide. There's a history of past suicide attempts, history of trauma or abuse, history of mental disorders or depression, other psychiatric disorders such as ADHD, anxiety, intellectual disabilities, or substance abuse, ongoing exposure to negative events such as abuse or neglect or bullying or peer victimization. Those who are cyberbullied report 2 times more likely to attempt suicide. Other general risk factors include family instability, available of lethal agents, negative cognitive styles such as pessimism or inflexible thinking, feelings of hopelessness or being a burden to others, recent loss, physical illness or chronic health concerns, poor coping skills, unwillingness to seek help due to stigma, chronic stressors, isolation or lack of support system, unsuccessful dating relationships. Protective factors are characteristics that make it less likely that individuals consider, attempt, or die by suicide. Protective factors buffer individuals from suicidal thoughts and behavior. To date, protective factors have not been studied as extensively as risk factors. Identifying and understanding protective factors are equally as important as researching risk factors. Wellness is more than the absence of disease. It involves complete, general, mental, and social well-being. And mental health is an essential component for overall health and well-being. The fact is, our overall well-being is tied to the balance that exists between our emotional, physical, and spiritual and mental health. Whatever our situation, we are all at risk of stress given to the demands of daily life and the challenges that it brings at home, at work, and in life. Steps that build and maintain well-being and help us all achieve wellness involve a balanced diet, regular exercise, enough sleep, a sense of self-worth, developing coping skills that promote resiliency, emotional awareness, and connections to family, friends, and the community. The LGBTQ+ youth are at a heightened risk of suicidal behavior, which may be related to experiences of discrimination, lack of support, family rejection, harassment, bullying, violence, and victimization. The CDC finds that the LGBTQ+ youth are 4 times more likely, and questioning youth are 3 times more likely to attempt suicide as their straight peers. The American Association of Suicidology reports that nearly half of younger transgender people have seriously considered taking their lives, and 1/4 report having made a suicide attempt. These risk factors include sociological, societal reactions to sexual orientation or gender identity, negative school climate for LGBTQ+ youth, gender nonconformity, coming out, either early or not coming out to anyone, homophobia, transphobia, heterosexism, lack of access to gay, trans-friendly services, rejection by family and peers, negative coming out experiences, rejection by faith and community. Psychological, internalized homophobia, transphobia, internal conflict. Existential, fear that the situation will never improve for the LGBTQ individual. The steps that we take to reduce suicidal behavior amongst LGBTQ+ youth can have the additional benefit of reducing the social stigma and discrimination against LGBTQ+ people in our families, schools, and communities. Our ultimate goal is not merely to help lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth survive, but to support them to thrive as healthy, productive, and vibrant youth welcomed and empowered in their communities. Protective factors for the LGBTQ+ youth include individuals, knowledge of LGBTQ+ issues, aware of and condemns heterosexism and discrimination, models of appreciation for all youth, maintains confidentiality and a positive messaging from the community. Families, unconditional support of child's identity, access to safe health care, ensures that school is safe and welcoming, educates self about issues facing the child, lets the child take the lead in coming out process, seeks resources for issues and appropriate responses to issues if they come up. Service providers, explicit policies that prohibit all discrimination, trains all staff in LGBTQ+ issues, offers programs for all types of families, establishes a welcoming environment, staff and volunteers are representatives of the LGBTQ+ community. Schools, a welcoming environment, obvious safe zone, peer-based support programs, trains all staff about LGBTQ+ issues, appropriate responses to bullying and harassment, especially if it's biased-based, condemns heterosexism and homophobic remarks, positive reaction to youth coming out, teachers and staff identified as LGBTQ+ friendly, LGBTQ+ inclusive policies that are clear, explicit anti-bullying, anti-harassment policies that are inclusive of LGBTQ+ identities, and LGBTQ plus friendly resources that are easily accessible. Life on the streets represents risk for all homeless youth. Because homeless and runaway youth face additional stressors, such as abuse and victimization while living on the street, they are especially at risk for suicidal thoughts. For youth experiencing homelessness, rates of suicide attempts are higher than those of adolescent populations in general. These young people have higher rates of mood disorders, conduct disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorders. One study found that more than half of runaway and homeless youth have some kind of suicide ideation. They also have a high rate of suicide attempts. One study found that 76% of homeless youth reported attempting suicide at least once, and 86% of that group reported more than one attempt. Risk factors include sociological, violence, sexual exploitation, substance abuse, risky sexual behavior, survival sex, unprotected sex, and prostitution. Inaccessible safe medical care, which is especially important for transgender youth, and victimization, rape, robbery. LGBTQ plus homeless youth experience twice the rate of sexual victimization as their straight peers. Being homeless in the youth's hometown is a risk factor for LGBTQ plus homeless youth. Loneliness, and some youth coming out of foster care experience rejection by peers on the street. Psychological, elevated rates of mental illness. Protective factors for homeless and runaway youth include supportive individuals, self-reliance, feelings of self-worth, positive motivation, reliance on spirituality, good connections with other people, positive coping skills, high self-esteem, strong social involvement, and secure attachment. Juveniles and youth in foster care have life histories that put them at a higher risk of suicide. Young people involved in the juvenile justice system die by suicide at a rate 4 times greater than the rate among youth in the general population. One researcher found that youth in foster care were more than twice as likely to consider suicide and almost 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than peers not in foster care. Risk factors for juvenile youth include history of abuse, both as victim and perpetrator, sexual, emotional, physical, individual history of substance abuse, room confinement, major affective disorder, borderline personality disorder, parents with affectionless bonding styles, major life events, court appointments, death of family member, poor social connections, instability at a younger age, not living with biological parent before detention, suicidal behavior of a friend, anger, failure in the program, fear of waiver to adult facility or more secure placement, sentencing, threats and intimidation of others in the facility, newly admitted, housing unit setup, length of stay in facility, a longer stay increases risk, isolation, segregation in unit, dehumanizing aspects in confinement, authoritarian atmosphere, staff, turnover, insensitive, disappointment, receipt of bad news, no visit, bad visit, phone calls, change in programming, new charges, program failure, loss of privileges. Risk factors of youth in foster care include the process of being removed from family, placement changes, disruptions, family abuse, neglect, emotional disorders, if transitioned out of foster care to homelessness. Some experience rejection by peers on the street, turning 18, and transitioning out of the system, decreased support, lost medical coupons, due to transition out of system, lack of sibling support due to separation. Protective factors for juvenile youth include safe housing for suicidal youth, proper training for all staff, clear suicide prevention policies and protocols, avoid isolation of youth suspected of suicidal thoughts, including not isolating the youth in their room, proper intake screening, increased communication between all players, arresting officer, caseworker, family, high level of supervision, restricting lethal means. Protective factors for foster care youth include education and training for foster parents to recognize, monitor, and react appropriately to the signs and symptoms of depression and suicidal thoughts, systematic training of child welfare and juvenile services staff, stable placement, lower placement change rates, access to education services while in care, and access to therapeutic services. Risk factors for younger students include multiple losses in the family, death, suicide, illness of family members, major disruptions in the family, divorce, suffered abuse or neglect, exposure to violence, tragic public events, school shootings, repeated TV coverage of tragedies, witnessing, experiencing family abuse, family moving, single family structure, learning difficulties, chronic medical illnesses. Protective factors in younger students include school climate, a strong sense of self-worth or self-esteem, pets, responsibilities and duties to others, reasonably safe and stable environment, connectiveness in regards to family, peers, school, trusted adults, and community. Risk factors are often confused with warning signs of suicide, and frequently suicide prevention materials mix the two into a list of what to watch out for. But the two are very different. Warning signs indicate an immediate risk of suicide, whereas risk factors indicate someone is at a heightened risk for suicide, but indicate little or nothing about immediate risk. Warning signs are only applicable to individuals, whereas risk and protective factors are found in individuals and communities. Being able to tell the difference between a risk factor and a warning sign is important in communications about suicide risk. Talking about warning signs helps people know what actions they can take right now to help someone at immediate risk for suicide. Talking about risk factors helps people understand what might need to change within an individual or a community in order to decrease suicide risk over time. These risk factors are characteristics associated with suicide. The strongest risk factor for suicide is a previous suicide attempt. When considering risk and protective factors, keep these points in mind. Not all risk and protective factors are created equal. Some risk factors have been shown to significantly increase risk, whereas other risk factors do not have as strong or well-demonstrated relationships to risk. Long lists mask the fact that some risk factors are much more powerful than others. High risk for suicide, whether for individuals or communities, is usually found in a combination of multiple risk factors. The significance of a particular risk or protective factor varies among individuals or communities, so the degree of risk or protection conveyed by any other factor will differ among individuals and the community. Although risk factors generally contribute to long-term risk, immediate stressors, so-called tipping points, may create the final push for the suicidal act. Tipping points may include relationship problems or breakups, financial hardships, legal difficulties, public humiliation or shame, worsening medical prognosis, or other stressful events.